What if the thing you crave is also the thing that you fear? That is the mindset of a fearful avoidant and how they view relationships. This is going to be the last part of the series in attachment styles in their childhood. And we're going to go more depth into the background of a fearful avoidant. This is Joshua Ward with Z Changed Me, and let's get into the intro first so we can get into this. See you in a bit. Welcome to my channel, and we're going to be talking about fearful avoidant childhood. And this is the last part of the series in attachment styles in childhood, and this is probably the most interesting one. This, because it has components of the dismissive avoidant, and it has components of the anxious preoccupied, and they just kind of just smash them together. But before we do that, let me tell you a little bit about my channel. We do relationships, single dad, that's who I am, what I'm about. It's gonna do personal growth and also attachment theory, and this is today's content, and more specifically, the fearful avoidant. Now, the fearful avoidant. The fearful avoidant also has a bunch of other names, which can make it really confusing if you start looking this up. And you're like, man, Josh gave this really good information about attachment styles, which you can check here and look at attachment styles. You want to add that and look more in detail, has it easily broken down. And you, oh man, let me look more into it online. And it just gets confusing. Now, you can see fearful avoidant. You can also see disorganized, because when they first kind of came up with this attachment styles, they used disorganized in the situation of fearful. But so you'll see that, but it's kind of outdated and the terms is not really kosher. And then you have anxious-avoidant because you have both. Sometimes you might see some people put anxious-avoidant under dismissive avoidant, but that doesn't make any sense, all right? It should be under fearful, okay? And fearful is because the fearful avoidant individuals, their source of comfort as a child was also their source of fear. And so they want some things, but because of their childhood, they actually fear what they want. It is a conundrum, but it makes sense when we talk about it in a bit. And they have a negative view of themselves and a negative view of other people. So they don't trust themselves, and they also don't trust other people. So they're just really confused about relationships and themselves. And a lot of times it can cause a lot of mental disorders, borderline personality, etc. But it's not all bad. It has some very good things we'll talk about in a bit. But actually, let's talk about it now. Let's go into it. Fearful avoidant childhood risk factors. And so this is really has to do with the child understanding like they're supposed to have safety and comfort from the caregiver. But in these situations in fearful, they actually fear the person that they're supposed to be attuned with. But it's all they know. All they have is this in their formative years, so they have to trust them. But again, they're in constant fear. And you can see how that can have some ripple effect in relationships down the road. But it goes to the first risk factor. First risk factor is being a part of verbal, physical, or sexual abuse. There's a huge part of it. It doesn't have to be always that, but it's a huge component of those situations, right? And it doesn't even have to be it happening to you. You could just see somebody else going through it, right? And because the fear is if it happened to somebody else in the household, it can happen to me. Or if it happens to somebody in my block, it can happen to me. And so that can cause a constant state of fear of not trusting the people around them. If you can't trust the people who are closest to you growing up, you gotta think about how it makes you trust people when you get older that are not there to really have to really depend on you and support you. And then the second risk factor is gonna be severe inconsistency. Now, you see inconsistency when you look at anxious preoccupied, but this is at another level to a point where like they don't know what's going on, or usually the inconsistency is paired with some type of abuse. Like if you do anything wrong, you can get beat down like into a pummel. While if you do something wrong, next time they may let it slide. And so you just don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know how to attune to what's going on. You're just in constant flux, trying to find some type of pattern, some type of recognition. The main thing is a source of fear. So they don't trust their caregiver anymore, and they start to kind of almost wire themselves, but because of the inconsistency a lot of time, they don't even trust themselves. And so what happens is they seek closeness with individuals and people when they get older to simulate that, but they also fear that they're gonna something's gonna happen to them if they stay with them too long. And it's in subconscious, it's not a conscious part of the brain. If you wanna understand more about the subconscious, please look at this video. It breaks down subconscious and conscious and how much your subconscious really controls your conscious mind. But you can't stop it just by trying to think about changing. You have to go back and look at it. We'll go into more detail how to help from that. But on to the next. Now let's look at the characteristics of a fearful avoidant adult. Now, the first one is going to be love or hurt. And so they want to belong, they want to be a part. But what happens is they feel like if they get too close with people, that person or people are going to hurt them. So it's best to be alone, but constantly longing in ways to try to connect. And so leads to number 2, which is fear of intimacy. And this is very similar to the dismissive avoidant, right? They fear intimacy at the same time. A lot of times because they had a lot of neglect, and so they don't know how to show intimacy. While fearful avoidant may have neglect, but also may have some trauma or abuse that makes them want to fear intimacy. All right, it could be sexual or even physical abuse that had happened to them when they get younger. But the main difference between the dismissive avoidant and the fearful is that fearful actually wants a relationship, right? And so they want it because they need it to fulfill their self-worth. The dismissive avoidant builds their self-worth based on accolades and getting self-esteem from outside perspective to, oh, you're amazing, while the fearful doesn't have that at all, and they just want somebody else to feel that, but they also fear it, which kind of is similar to the anxious side, which they don't have a lot of self-belief in themselves, they believe in other people. So that's why you see like the toddler of like avoidant and an anxious kind of mixed in with the fearful. And so, which leads into number 3, which is they believe they're unlovable. And they feel like it's inevitable that if people start to like them, then they're not gonna like them. Or if they start to like them, that something's a fluke, it's not really them, and it's gonna end. And that leads to number 4, is self-sabotage. So they'll start to do behaviors to sabotage what they have. And they might have no real problem, but they'll produce a problem to get a self-fulfilling prophecy. Or they'll look for people who will feed into exactly like those situations where there was girls who are in abusive households, and then they leave that household and go into another abusive household because they're seeking the people which is familiar, but also producing the same results and basically causing a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, disorganization of the fearful avoidant. Now, looking at a game, like say there's a game of life, and you have no idea how the rules play, you never really understood what to do, and then now it's your turn to make a move, and you just make a move because you have to, and you don't know what to really expect afterwards, and you keep losing, and you don't know why. That can cause severe confusion. You don't know which move does, because any move you feel causes problems, and you start to question yourself, which causes a lot of confusion and causes you to potentially push away the good people in your life. And when you start to do that, what happens is you start to cause them to be, the people in your life that you care about, to be frightened and scared because they're really walking, don't know what to do. They're walking eggshells. They don't know what to do. They're walking, they don't know what you're gonna do because it was a model for you. Unpredictable behavior was normal. So one of the major predictors of producing that is having a household or a parent who is fearful avoidant, and they put that environment onto you. And you see there's a common theme with all the attachment styles, from anxious to dismissive avoidant. It is passed down and through your own personal trauma, but the way to fix that is eventually healing that trauma, which we'll talk about next. So how do you heal a fearful avoidant? And that has to do with a lot of different things, but I'm gonna try to break it down to some small actionable things. And it's gonna be increase your awareness. And so by increasing your awareness, you can do 2 things that are increasing that awareness. You could increase your self-worth and also increase your trust in other people. Because remember in the beginning, I told you fearful avoidants have a negative view of themselves and a negative view of other people. But the first thing you want to do is probably work on yourself, your self-worth. Because if you start to trust other people first, it could also be really bad because they can put you in a bad situation depending on the people you're starting to trust. But find that self-worth, finding ways to truly help understand yourself, knowing your triggers, knowing how to make sure your needs are met, how to set up proper boundaries in place. These things help you understand and keep your self-worth. And doing meditation, understanding like what emotions are you truly having, and healthily speaking up and communicating. And sometimes, so a lot of people, this may seem easy, but for fearful avoidance, this is terribly difficult. So understanding that, but a good way to help with that, which also will help with the trusting of other, is getting a therapist. And first of all, it's hard to find a good therapist. Please check this video out. It's gonna be over here actually. The video, which it kind of teaches you how to find a really good therapist, but they can be a person that you start to trust. There's a book called The Body Keeps a Score, and it's a great book, intense book, takes a long time to read, there's really a lot involved with it. But what it shows is there was this girl who was very traumatized, wouldn't talk to anybody. But then she started having a horse as a friend, and she started speaking to the horse, and by speaking to that horse, she built a friend through the horse, and she was able to go to therapy and start working on herself because she actually found something or some person to trust. And so that's a huge component on understanding, is finding somebody to trust, and the therapist has tools that can help you also with your self-worth, and also start to give you ways to find ways to healthily find relationships that can be positive for you and not gonna harm you. So, and the last thing is you really wanna make sure you understand that you gotta find a way to make the negative into a positive. I know this may seem crazy, but everything in the past happened to put you in the position you are now. And a lot of people who are fearful avoidant, they have a lot of amazing skills. They have an ability to read and predict situations because in their childhood, a lot of times they were in constant fear, so they were always hyper attuned and looking at situations. So the thing is, the thing happened in the past, but it doesn't have to define you now. And you can start to choose when to activate and not activate it with your conscious mind. And so it can be switched into quote unquote an overall positive because of the things that you have built and learned from the situations, and how maybe you can be able to stop the generational trauma to be passed on to your kids could be a positive too. So finding a way to do that will really you can start looking at the past instead of a negative situation, but it's an overall positive because of the positive you choose out of it. Some people would, like, something traumatic happens to them, then they join an organization or start an organization, and then now they realize, okay, even though it hurt me, I'm able to help thousands of people, and now they can look at it overall as a positive. That's an example. But I mean, so those are the three things. It's going to be the self-awareness, looking at your self-worth and trusting others. Please get a therapist. I mean, this is really hard to do on your own. Have a good support group, all right? And last is have a good support group. Just have a great support group. Just as much as you're there, make sure that they're aware that you understand what's going on, and to help give them a little more grace and patience with you. As long as you're working on it, it should be a positive thing. But final thoughts, guys, I know people think like fearful avoidant, usually the distance where nobody wants to be that, but it's really just a spectrum. You have dismissive avoidant where you are. You could be dismissive leaning fearful, dismissive leaning anxious, and so it's not really like a set where you are. A lot of times you're a hybrid, and depending on the situation, you can have different attachment styles. So, but the one thing that's positive with fearful is that they understand how to avoid, and they understand how that people are important at the same time. It's just they don't know when to use it and how to use it. So they have the tools, they just need to know when to activate those tools and to put them in a systematic process. So hopefully this information was important. This really, having understanding the childhood really helped me understand like what I could do as a father, but also understand myself, why I was the way I was, to help some of the things that was traumatic in my past, which wasn't that bad compared with most other people, but it still affected my decisions going forward. Please like and subscribe. I appreciate you staying this long. If this is great content, please comment down below if there's something beneficial or anything else you want to add. I think I'm going to do relationships next in the series, and I'm excited to talk about attachment styles and relationships. But until next time, I always end my video content with this. But if you have kids, slow down and give them a hug. We go through life just running around doing all the stuff and not realizing that, man, I might not even get my hug in 2 weeks. And so just they need that on a consistent basis, but also tell them that they're worthy. If you don't tell them they're worthy on a consistent basis, they're gonna constantly look for that outside approval, and you can lead people into a fearful and a dismissive route by just not telling them that you're loved and you're worthy just because you're born. So, guys, thank you guys for being here and finishing the series if you did finish the series, and look forward to other content in the future.